So, I know you guys all wanted a cooking video, so I waited until Easter to post this, mostly because what I'm about to show you is kind of weird, and I don't know if it's as common in the city as it is up here. Okay, actually, I'm going to level with you guys. This isn't even common up here. So, one of the things that everyone always talks about when it comes to economics is trying to make the best with whatever resources you've got. And whenever we're in a pandemic, people start talking about survival. How is it that we are going to survive? What's another way to cook our food? So, last time when we did our comparison, we talked about Marxism. I showed you guys how to cook eggs and used eggs as symbolic for the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, using scrambled and fried eggs in place of the thesis and antithesis. So today, I don't really have a good... I'm still working on the economic tie-in for this one, but you guys all wanted to see an example of a cooking video. So this one I'm going to actually probably the best tie-in I can think of this is explaining how different countries use different resources. We're now in the macroeconomic portion. Now, one of the big issues that always comes up in any community is the example of a utility. And utilities are probably a really interesting segment when we think about them from an economic standpoint. They are monopolies of a sort that are legally allowed to exist. And the reason why utilities are allowed to hold these monopolies is they provide some sort of vital public service in which competition may not really be possible or even 100% beneficial, but the community still needs this service. And in exchange for this exclusivity in the market, the utility is tightly regulated by the state. So, for example, most people will think of these in terms of electric and gas companies, like Con Ed in the city, Central Hudson up here where I live, things like that. Now, the reason I bring this up is that many parts of the world are struggling with the fact that they don't have access to the same types of vital infrastructure, right? You look at a country like Burkina Faso or Nigeria, many times their infrastructure is not as strong as we have here stateside. You know, frequent power outages, things like that. And that's even when the system isn't under stress. For example, here stateside, we've seen the potential of monopolies, of utility monopolies such as Con Edison, as well as even just large competitors like in internet fields experiencing shutdowns because they're overburdened during COVID-19. So one of the things that comes up whenever we talk about this is the need to utilize some type of resource that is not part of the standard part and parcel of utilities. And when we talk about utilities and the ability to prepare food, we're usually talking about either electric or gas supply. So whenever we talk about survival, there's a tendency to focus on any kind of fire-based cooking mechanism, which in some parts of the world is still the standard, using wood or charcoal as the medium. So one of the things that I do up here, because I am probably just a wee bit out of my dang mind, is that I tend to grill my turkey. Yes. First of all, yes, for those of you who eat ham, I'm sorry, I'm not a ham person. Yes, leg of lamb will be following on here, but right now, we're going to be focusing on the turkey. Now, I want you guys to calm down a second, because I will say one thing. When you grill anything, when you cook anything on the barbecue, right? Barbecue originates from the practice of the original indigenous Haitian people, the barboku. This idea of cooking by means of smoke. And American barbecue is descended from that. Basically, the tradition was brought up from the Caribbean into the United States, and it flourished in the American South. Originally, barbecue was popular in those areas because the use of smoking was made very easy to use as a way of making very large cuts of meat such as like whole pigs and things like that. And for many in the planter class, this was a very easy thing to do since they had large amounts of slave labor. With the end of the Civil War, barbecue ended up becoming very popular in a very different way. There's a lot of poverty in the South, both among the freedmen, the recently freed slaves, as well as many poor whites. One of the things that barbecue became popular for was as a way of softening up meat. Smoke will actually cause the meat to become softer, more tender. And this is helpful when you're either cooking very undesirable cuts of meat that are typically more muscly, less tender, like brisket, or when you're cooking gamier types of meat. So, for example, a common barbecue delicacy that used to be very popular in the 19th century, it's since waned off now, is possum. And for many freed slaves, this was actually something even slaves in the field, knew how to cook. This was one of their culinary expertise because the planters would tend to use them to dig the large pits, the barbecue pits. Barbecues changed a lot. We introduced charcoal instead of wood. The advent of the FDA and other health departments mandated the introduction of smoking ovens, which was an innovation brought over from Germany that actually, they say, saved the barbecue industry in Texas, because you can't exactly show a hole in the ground to the health department. So, this long diatribe aside, the reason I brought this up is I wanted to show you guys. Now, because we're using smoke, you're going to see a good amount of charcoal on this turkey. So, please don't panic. I haven't actually charred it to a crisp. So I'm going to switch the camera around just about now, and I'm going to let you guys see this turkey in effect. If I can just